Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Homeschool Minnesota. My name is Dayle Annand. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. This podcast is an outreach of Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators, MÂCHÉ. We're so glad that you guys are here. We've been talking a lot on this podcast about just different homeschool issues. Like we just did a phonics thing. We've got a few other things coming up that you guys are going to really enjoy their practical homeschooling things. But we also have spent a lot of time in the last, I would say, 6 months really talking about discipleship and how homeschooling is discipleship 101. It's parenting 101. It's us pouring into the lives of our children what they need to know to become the kingdom builders that God is calling them to be. And so, as parents, we all want to feel like we can be energized and ready to face the day with hope and a can do attitude, which is sometimes especially hard, especially homeschool moms, because then we have to get up and do math. And like, if you're like me, that was always a big old challenge. And sometimes we feel weighed down by a lot of things. And today we're going to talk about being weighed down by our mistakes and sins of our past, distant past or recent past. Maybe it was just yesterday you made a really bad decision or you got angry and lost your temper or whatever. And it's like it just gives that like feeling of can't I do anything right? It keeps us living in guilt and shame instead of hope and faith. So we're going to talk today about this book. Can you guys see it? I hope you can. Okay. This book is Make Peace with Your Past. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. We have with us, it was written by Dr. Gregory L. Jantz, but he is not here with us anymore. So his wife, who is a wonderful woman of God, is going to talk with us today. I want to welcome LaFon Jantz. Hi, LaFon.
Hi, Dayle. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor to be able to represent my husband in this way.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you
Yes.
just tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My husband and I were married 42 years. We got 42 great years together. He did recently pass away in a very tragic accident. Thankfully, he did not suffer. That brings me so much comfort and all who knew him. Such a great, wonderful, vivacious, effervescent man. So, huge loss to us and to our community. But he and I founded the Center A Place of Hope 42 years ago, right out of college. We met each other in college. And we just knew from the very beginning that we wanted to help folks struggling with mental health issues differently. And how could our physical well being not actually also contribute to any mental anguish or mental well being experience? And so that's when we began really working into the mental health arena, the whole person approach, mental, including spiritual, physical, and emotional, not letting those
Yeah.
things, any one of those things, loose, because it's like a three-legged stool. If you aren't feeling good, of course, you're not going to be mentally strong and healthy and able, or as acute as as you need to be
Yeah.
to perform. So we just really, right from the beginning, put that three-legged stool in place for whole person care.
That sounds really good. So I have a lot of questions.
Yes, go for it.
My first question is, so your husband died in an accident, which means that it
Yes,
was very sudden. It was
it was
unexpected. It's not like you
very,
had that journey of a prolonged illness where you could prepare
no.
yourself. Tell me how you move from hurting to healing in a situation like that.
I'm so grateful. That's such a good question. And it's only been 6 months, but I will say
Man.
we have come through this, I think, amazingly. And first and foremost was a determination to stay together as a family. So my two adult sons and daughter-in-law, we all made a pact together to share everything, to just go through this together, make decisions together, not isolate. And we also decided to, leave no stone unturned. My mother passed away suddenly when I was 11 years old. And my dear beloved father did not believe in counseling. So we never got help for that. And that it really resulted in a lot of depression in my childhood, which I do believe God has turned around and used and motivated me to, to
Yeah.
find a psychologist to marry and to do something about it to help other people, because I know what suffering that is. It is a deep,
Yeah,
dark suffering.
it
And
is.
it doesn't have to be that way, but we don't have the tools. We don't know that it doesn't have to be that way. And we don't know the questions to ask to get the breakthroughs to feel better. So as a result, I said we're going to do some family counseling because we do not want to leave any stone unturned, and we are not going to come out of this weaker. We're going to come out stronger. And also a determination in my spirit. I just felt like I'm just going to need to take on whatever comes my way and not shrink back from anything. And so there was a determination and resolve to take what comes and to not shrink back from it, or run away, or feel helpless,
Yeah.
because God has, equipped me to be able to do this work and to be able to pick up the pieces. It was a huge sudden shift, to be
Yeah.
thrown into taking care of a large agency with over 50 staff and clients coming from all around the country. It's like,
Wow.
okay, Lord, you must, like, this is providence. I can't do anything to change it. I can't do anything about it other than to just take it on. So that's, and I don't regret that. I'm very happy with how the Lord has shown himself strong for me through every circumstance that I've navigated through. A lot of
That's
things
so
that I
good.
just didn't know because I have not been in the business for 13 years.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I started it with him, so I know the business. The technology, I have to say,
Oh, tell
13
me
years,
about it.
I
Technology
know,
just
catch up.
is, yeah, hard.
Yeah. So anyway, we're good. I'm still on my learning tour, but
Yeah,
it's been a challenge.
never too old to learn, I guess. That's me
Yeah,
too. It's like, well, I don't know
but
what
it's
I'm doing, but
painful.
we're just gonna do it. Um,
Exactly.
I I grew up in an era where and I still hear a lot of Christians say, if we don't we don't need to go to psychologists or psychiatrists or our mental health or whatever, because if we have faith, God is just going to take he gives us the joy of the Lord. He gives us I don't personally believe that. I believe that if you are sick with diabetes, you treat that. I feel like
Definitely.
that's kind of the healthy way of looking at it. The Lord has given us people who love Him and who can biblically lead us into freedom. And so tell us a little bit about if you're somebody who's listening to our listeners who are from that kind of it's always kind of just been like downplayed, like it's not a big deal. Your mental health, you can control that, you can come, but not everybody can for various reasons.
Right.
How do you move towards healing when everything seems to be falling apart and you've never been given yourself that permission to ask for help?
Right. To ask for help is very hard. And within the Christian community, I think it's very easy to feel very isolated. There's situations that are
Yeah.
nobody else's business. And if it was shared publicly, would be devastating to you or to your business. So there's a need for privacy in some situations where confidentiality just really needs to be maintained. And so I think that's sadly a reason why some people don't ask for help. There's also the need to get new tools, to have new ideas in a way um, that can be acceptable to receive the help. So a lot of times we have defenses and barriers, maybe because we've been hurt or shamed or abused in the past, and that can make it very difficult to receive new information from, just someone who's not well trained on how to deliver that message and how to help navigate through all the steps of recovery, because it is not easy and it is not overnight and it's not on anyone else's timetable. It takes time to recover.
Yeah.
And if we try to rush it or ignore it, worse, ignoring it is way worse. It seeps out in different ways. We tend to leak as human beings. We can't contain our anger, our unforgiveness, our bitterness, our negativity. Pretty soon we're like, who am I? This is not who I thought I would end up being. This is
Yeah.
not the wife I wanted to be and mother I imagined myself being. Where is this coming from? Well, often it is just that it's the things that you've avoided or put to the side or not dealt with, tried to ignore, tried to forget. The problem is memories do not go away. And it's just a matter of time before it does show up in some way, either being hypersensitive or full of anger and reactionary versus being able to keep our cool and work through things.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot of help that good Christian therapy can offer, as long as you find someone who really shares your values.
Yeah. Um, in this book, there's a discussion about offense. and how offense physically affects us. That seems to be a really big deal in not just in the Christian world, but in society today. I mean, somebody's always getting offended about something. And then we
Yeah.
seem to feel like we're justified because we've been offended, we're justified in walking in rejection and anger and all the things. Can you talk a little bit about how offense physically affects us? I mean, I think it's just an absolute wall. So you can't go forward once you walk in offense, I think.
Right. I mean, first of all, is acknowledging that that's what you're dealing with, that you've been offended. And that's not something that we can necessarily control. Something has crossed us in the wrong way. And so I think acknowledging that that's how you feel.
Mhm.
But don't we know that feelings can also lie, and feelings can trick us up and trap us into, becoming and behaving in ways that are unbecoming and that become alienating or offensive in themselves. And so we end up sinning as a response to being offended, which
Right.
is two wrongs that don't make a right. That's a homeschool.
So true.
Right? Yeah, two wrongs do not make a right. But there have been research, the Mayo Clinic did research, and those who were able to forgive offenses quickly, they lowered their heart rate, their blood pressure, their response was stronger. And so there are so many blessings in forgiveness, but it's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Because we're a society of justice, and that's not just. And if I forgive them, then that's the same as condoning what they did. And it's just not. Forgiveness is a decision. It's, as a Christian, it's obedience. It's choosing to live God's higher way. Man's ways are lower, but God's ways are higher. And the reason he wants us to do that, obviously, is that he sent his son. And as long as we confess and repent from our sins, we have forgiveness. And in the same way, we can offer forgiveness to others. It doesn't mean you're condoning what they did. It doesn't mean you're putting yourself back into a victim position. You may decide to kind of back away from that relationship, and that's okay. I don't ever condone cutting anyone off because I don't think that's healthy. But you can put the relationship on a different level, and that's okay. You can make that decision. Forgiveness isn't our nature. So it's something we decide and we learn to do. We walk it out. And my husband helped me so much. There was this we all know one person we need to
Oh,
forgive.
yeah.
There's always, like, if I say that, everyone's going to think of that one. Oh, yeah, I got to deal with that.
Mhm.
And I had that one person in my life, and it took me 2 years. I'm not kidding, to actually walk out that forgiveness. And something you can do to help you, my husband shares in the book, Make Peace with Your Past, is to make yourself a contract. You can do it in your journal and just write, I, LaFawn, commit to forgiving Daryl for whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
but be specific. And if you have not forgiven that person for a long time and they're still in your life, you probably have a long list. He
Yeah.
says, write everything down, just clean it out. You got to clean out the wound. And you can rip those pages out and put it in the shredder if you want to. You can burn it up. You can keep it, but we're not really recommending keeping it because you
Mm.
don't want to dwell on it. So you
Keep
make a
going back
decision.
to it every
Put
time
it-
you're
Yeah.
offended by that person. See?
Yeah. And this book helps you do that,
It
actually
does.
do it.
Yeah.
Doing it is the hard thing for humans. We don't want to actually do it or
Absolutely.
change.
It's a
But you can.
practical Yeah, it's a practical book. It's not gonna take the place of counseling, but it's
No.
gonna give you those first steps of what to do in certain situations, like, I can't face today because of this or this situation because of that. It'll get you to the point where you can face that situation, but then you also realize, "I probably need to talk to somebody about this.
Yeah.
This is not going away on its own." And you talk about forgiveness and offense, and like when you're offended, then you have, walking through that process of forgiveness. Because it's not something where you just go, I forgive them, and then you just move on. There has to be boundaries and things there. Can you talk a little bit about healthy boundaries? Like, what does it look like to forgive somebody, still be in relationship with them, but then make sure that you're protecting that part of yourself that gets hurt when you're around them? What does that?
Yeah, you know what is amazing is once you really genuinely truly forgive all the offenses, you can actually be free to see that person in a different light. And that's what happened for me is that my unforgiveness was the filter through which every word this person spoke became offensive to me.
Mhm.
Every word. She could not do anything and not offend me.
Yeah, yeah,
That's terrible. Like that is like there's no possibility for relationship when your filter is
absolutely.
always negative. And so truly forgiving really put a new filter on. And so you'll find that if you've really forgiven someone, you'll have a new filter. Now, does that mean that I subject myself to her in any way? No, absolutely not. And that's what's changed is I do not take her words to heart like I used to, because she'll say one thing one time and the complete opposite the next. And I
Right.
learned, no, you can't. She doesn't really even know what she's saying. And so don't take it that way because you just have to make those allowances. So you learn how to be in relationship with that person and not fall for it every time. And so I spend less time with that person. If we're visiting, I stay in a hotel. I don't stay in the same home. There's ways to create safe space. I'll spend an hour over a meal, and if it's going well, I'll maybe choose to spend another hour together with this person and then have a reason that I need to go. And so you can set those kinds of boundaries. You can think about it. God's given us a higher level of operation than the animals. They don't
Absolutely.
know that they can change their circumstance, but we can. So
Mhm.
just take some time to just kind of think about it, think through what can I do differently? What pattern can I set differently?
Mhm.
And don't do anything out of obligation. Make sure you're doing what exactly the Lord wants you to do, not because you're obligated to do it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we're taught in today's society is that our feelings are our truth. And I see that seeping into the church where it's like, well, if you feel it, then that's you're allowed. You're allowed to feel that and to act on that because that's your truth. And it's like, is there anything more damaging than that really big lie?
Well, and why is that a lie? Because it's so temporary. Our feelings
Exactly.
can change, and it's not necessarily based in long-term reality, and it's not necessarily going to be what's best
Right.
for the relationship and the family and the community, the church community. So it's really important. Feelings are, I think, a red flag to
Yes.
be paid attention to
They're
because you don't want to
indicators.
ignore your feelings. But sometimes we can be very rejecting as a result. And I don't think that's what the Lord intended. That's not godly. What we are to do instead is to really take that time to consider, why am I feeling this way? Where is that coming from? And then address it.
Yeah.
Because so many people are avoiding it, not dealing with it, licking their wounds, going to other people, which is gossip, instead of dealing with it directly. And so, but some of that is also the isolation that we have in our culture. We're not taught anymore those social skills of civility.
No.
And so it's more civil to actually address the issue with the person directly in a loving and kind way. It's called a soft intervention.
Right.
You can do a hard intervention if that person is not paying attention and they keep doing something that is really hurting other people or themselves, then you can bring two or three together and address it with them. And that's what I would call a hard intervention. And those are some recovery techniques, but I think they work within the church and community as well. A soft intervention is you approaching them lovingly and kindly with your concerns. A hard intervention is you if you have to bring other people in. But address it. Don't let it go. Don't we
Yeah.
wish other people would do that with us? It's
Yes.
hard, but you want to know
Yeah.
if you're doing something that is bothersome to someone else,
I
and we
always
don't.
tell people that I know that I can be very difficult. I know my weaknesses. I'm very aware of them. And so if I'm acting a certain like this is what I tend to do or this is I just stop it from the very beginning and I go, "You are welcome to say to me, 'Hey Dale, remember that conversation you had with me at the beginning where you said you tend to be this way? Turns out you are.'" And I'm like, "Oh, let me
I
change
open the
that."
door, my kids, because they think I'm yelling at them, but I'm not. I'm intense about something. I'm raising my
Yes.
voice. I'm feeling passionate.
I
I'm
want
not
them
yelling
to
at
hear
you.
me.
You're yelling.
I
And
know.
so we're having those conversations and it's really good because
Yeah. Yeah,
it's hard to can't talk about it. So you open the
Exactly.
door and you can talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, why is it so important to accept hurts that we have suffered or the mistakes that we have made? And what can we do to begin moving past them? Like we have to realize our skin that's in this game. Like we've done things ourselves.
Right, right. And the key there is there can be guilt, but we need to make sure that we resist shame. So,
Absolutely.
shaming ourselves, shaming our children, shaming our husbands, or, or if a man's watching this, shaming your wife. The shame is the thing that we can't really deal well with.
Yeah.
That is, that's hard. And that's hard in the Christian community
Yeah.
because that's kind of how we've been raised, probably if we've been raised, in that way. So instead, so what does that look like? So what it looks like is acknowledging guilt. Like, oh, I'm guilty. I did that. Take responsibility is another way of
Mhm.
saying, okay, I'm acknowledging, I'm taking responsibility for that. That just happened and I did that
Mhm.
and I'm sorry. But you're not shaming yourself. You're rising up to the challenge and acknowledging that it happened. The hardest thing is when someone refuses to acknowledge that something just happened or that they did something harmful. There's no room to address it with them because they won't acknowledge it. So you want to make sure that you are acknowledging it for yourself. And then you can, even if that other person doesn't do it, you can acknowledge that they are guilty. They did do that.
Yeah.
And that did happen. You know what you know. You
Mhm.
saw what you saw and you heard what you heard. And that is what did happen. That is the truth.
Mhm.
And you can address it. Um, and if that person refuses, you can do the hard intervention or you can choose to back away. And still, though, you need to walk through that forgiveness, either self forgiveness, so you don't hang on to it, or forgiving that other person, because forgiving that other person delivers God's justice to their life and frees you. You don't have to punish them. God's got it. He also knows. He sees everything. We're not hiding. Are those skeletons in our closet? That's not hiding.
Exactly.
That's all there. So you might as well acknowledge it. You might as well open the door to the Lord because he's already seen it. And, and it's freeing. It's scary. It's frightening. It's terrifying. But just knowing that you are fully known can also be extremely freeing. And that's the beginning of recovery. Because if you can't talk about it, you can't change it. And whether you talk about it with someone else, you talk about it in your prayer life, you get a counselor to help walk you through trauma or whatever severe anxiety, anything that's got a control over you. You have to acknowledge first and foremost that that's what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't know exactly what it is, but we can get help to even learn what it is.
That's so good. Um,
Yeah.
so you also your husband addresses not to speed up our recovery, not to speed up
Right.
our healing. Like it's very important to just take your time to walk through it and to trust God's process, to trust
Mhm.
what's going to happen, to not now I am ADHD. I was actually diagnosed. Okay. So it's there.
So it's legit.
I tend to be like, okay, let's get this over with and move on,
Yeah.
So um and that's been something that has not been healthy for me. And,
Yeah.
I realized that then I get, a few years down the road and I'm like, "Oh, that's still there." Can you talk a little bit about why it's impossible, why we should just really trust God's process and his
Yeah.
timing?
Yeah. Well, my husband addresses that really
He
well.
does.
In his 42 years, like he was such a good counselor. I mean, he's the kind of guy that you would go and you would hear one sentence and you're like, huh, that's just what I needed to hear. It unlocks, exactly what you need to reorient everything and just that level of skill. And I think that's why his books are so valuable, even the small ones. You can read through it in 2 or 3 hours, but I don't recommend that. I think it's better if you just take a chapter a day or a week and really work through the questions at the end. But so he would say problems don't go away. And so time does not heal. But at the same time, you can't rush it. So you do need time. But if you don't attend to it, time itself is not going to heal.
Mhm.
So as long as you're addressing it, you're working on it, you're staying on it, and not letting things slide by. And, then it does take time. Like I said, it took me 2 years to walk out forgiveness. And he's the one that said, honey, you got to walk it out. It's not something you do, you walk it out.
Mhm.
So healing is walking it out. If we rush it, we could start beating ourselves up emotionally and causing more problems for ourselves, being too self critical, thinking we should have this by now. I should be better by now. So there's that shoulding and that shaming, right? We don't want to
Right.
do that. But also, it could lead you to be critical of others who are, still going in the recovery process. It seems to be taking them a long time, but we need to allow for that time for healing and recovery and give a lot of encouragement to that person because they may be feeling discouraged about
Mhm.
their lack of progress. So, we multiply what we magnify. So we want to magnify the fact that they're at least acknowledging the issue and still working on it.
Yeah.
So we want to be supportive and not critical of ourselves or others.
That's so good. I think too, one of the things that I've learned about myself is knowing my triggers, like what triggers me to have those negative emotions or those negative feelings. And if I'm getting triggered, then I know there's something there that it hasn't quite healed yet, and I need to work through that. Um, so like, I mean, like right now, where
Yeah,
I
easy to say, but in the moment, really hard to do. Really hard.
exactly, exactly, and it takes a minute to, like, stop and go, "Okay, Lord, why am I acting like this? Why did that news story give me this feeling of, like, anger? I don't understand it," you know? And because 'cause I'm not really an angry person, but boy, some things can just really just get it up in me, and I'm just like, "Oh, where did that come from?" You know? And,
Yeah.
and oftentimes it leads to me realizing, oh, God was trying to do something with me back there, and I just kind of pushed through it and didn't really walk through it. Yeah.
Right. And so things you can do about that is analyze your news source. Is it the way the story was, spun
Yeah.
that was a trigger? Because sometimes there's intentional,
Oh, of
uh,
course. Everybody has an
happenings, but
angle.
also is that anger something that the Lord wants you to do something with? So anger
Yeah.
can be again a red flag that you can actually do good things with. It could be a
Yes.
motivator for
Yep.
good, but
Yep.
probably not if you act on it right away. You need
Absolutely. Take a minute.
to analyze it, which it sounds like you're doing. So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, we're working through it. So this
Yeah.
is not the Dale therapy, session, even though obviously I could use one. But
Oh, we
I
all
just,
could.
just wrapping up, your husband, you're a very good keeper of his legacy. I want you to know
Oh,
that. I see that in
I
you, just this gentleness and this wisdom that obviously 42 years of being around it has rubbed off quite well
yes,
on you.
well,
So
we live it. We live it and breathe it.
exactly.
Yeah,
I
we
just
love
want to
it.
again remind people of your husband's book, Make Peace with Your Past. And then it's a little living life with no regrets. Guys, isn't that just kind of the goal? Is to live our life and not have to look back and go, if I could have done that over, or if I could have said that differently, if I could have raised my kids differently, if that, when my daughter came home with that situation, if I could have just really acted differently towards her, what kind of relationship could we have today? I mean, things like that. This is just awesome. I wish this would have been around when my kids were like, you know, born.
I
It
know.
would have been great. Um, but it's here now. In the description of this podcast, as always in the show notes, you will get a link to Dr. Jantz's website, all the information about him, where to get his books, all those things, how to get a hold of a place for hope, and all the wonderful things that they have to offer there, and how to get a hold of just help if you need it. Because um, it's just really important in this day and age that we as parents, we as believers, we as the kingdom of God get ourselves healthy. Right now, especially, I think in this day and age, sometimes we're the only voice of reason, which is scary, um, uh, out there that is like bringing people peace. We need to be agents of peace, agents of hope. And what does that look like? And in order for that to happen, we've got to find peace and hope in our own lives.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us today,
Aw,
LaFawn.
thanks for having me. It was a joy and a pleasure and happy to be here anytime.
Yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation. I will probably have you back because I have other questions for you. This could go on for hours, but we're not going to do that.
We'll spread it out over time.
We'll
It
make
takes
it
time.
we'll milk it. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, that's what you do. Well, he has 45 books, so, there's, a lot of
45.
opportunity.
Where did he find the time?
He owned it, in his mind. He knew the struggles. Like, he was such an expert, 42 years sitting with folks, front row seat on all the issues and how to help people navigate through. And so he really put a lot of thought and energy into his books. He would keep a file, and he would keep also documentation that proved, why these situations occurred. So he had all the research as well. I mean, these books are just really well written, easy
They
to read,
are.
and very well documented. And so he would keep files on every book. He'd be working on 2 or 3 books at a time. It's amazing.
Wow. Well,
I couldn't keep up with him.
yeah, me neither. I can do one thing at a time. Well, I can do a lot of things at a time, just not well.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Research
This
is
is
actually backing
actually
that
a
up.
yeah, this is actually a really good book. It is thin, and honestly, you can read it in a day
Yeah,
and a half. I wouldn't, however, I think you're right that every chapter is so thought provoking, and then there's just questions and how to just get this into your DNA. It's just a really good way to get a little bit of therapy in your pocket and to help you kind of start the process, but then feel like, okay, maybe now I can talk to somebody because I actually know what it is that I'm dealing with. That's what this is. That's what this is. So again, there all the stuff will be in the show notes. Please check it out. Yeah, this is the time. This is the time. You're
this is
gonna
the
think
time.
about this later. This is it. So thank you so much, LaFon. I wish you a very happy new year, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
All right. Take care.